Hello, and welcome to episode 35 of 10,000 Stitches podcast, a weekly chit-chat, well, in this case it's been 2 weeks, but a normally weekly chit-chat all about the joys of sock knitting. My name is Andy, and it's been a while since I've sat down in front of the camera. Like I just said, it's been 2 weeks since the last episode, and so this all just feels super weird. It's actually been 2 weeks, I think, since I've recorded anything for either, any of my YouTube channels, so like it just feels super weird to be sitting alone in my room talking again to nobody, but here we are. This is a podcast all about knitting socks. If you wanted to find me elsewhere on the interwebs, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Ravelry as Purlbug, Purlbug. You can find my blog at thepurlbug.com, and then we have the 10,000 Stitches podcast Ravelry group. I don't know if I said my name. My name is Andy. Hi. Like I said, brain's all kerfuzzled today, and especially so because I have been sick for the past couple of days, which I will talk about later, but so today I'd say I'm back at about 90%, but if I don't seem quite as peppy as usual, that's why. But like I said, I'll talk about that more later. So, today is Sunday, August 14th. This episode will go live on Tuesday, August 16th. We'll just follow kind of the normal format. We'll talk about finished objects, works in progress, what's coming up next, talk a little bit about the knit along. I can show you guys the prize, talk about some new stuff that I got since the last time I recorded, and some new stuff I think I will be getting, although by the time this goes live, I will probably already, we'll see. Anyway, let's talk about some new stuff I think I'll be getting. And then we'll do question of the week, and then we'll do chit chat, which I will probably have a lot of chit chat since I have 2 weeks to catch up on. Let's get going. So, finished object. So I do have a finished object, and these are finished since the last time I recorded. I think I was a pretty good amount through the pair when I recorded last, so I finished them quite a while ago. Let me see, I probably wrote down when I finished them. I finished them on August 4th, which was actually the day that we left to go on our trip up to DC. And then, so I finished them, and then I had tried to start my next pair, and that didn't work out, so I didn't bring any with me. But anyway, I finished these on August 4th, and it's August 14th, so these were finished almost 10 days ago, or were finished 10 days ago at the time of recording. So these are a pair of blueberry waffle socks. I called these my gator socks because if you look at them up close with this yarn, it kind of makes me think of the back of an alligator, kind of bumpy and green. And I don't remember exactly which yarn this is. I don't have the tag with me anymore. I know that I was linking it in my notes for the previous episode, so I will make sure to link it again. Speaking of notes, if you're looking for links to anything that I mentioned in this episode, things like yarns or shops or patterns, anything like that, everything will be linked below the video depending on where you're watching. So if you're watching this on the blog or on the Ravelry thread for this episode, all the links will be right below the video. If you're watching this episode on YouTube, underneath the video in the description box will be a link to the specific blog post for this episode. You can go there and find all the links. There will also be a link to the Ravelry group. From there you can find the thread for this episode and then also find all the links. Anyway, gator socks, done. So these are just a basic blueberry waffle sock with a fish lips kiss heel. People, am I right? This is a BFL yarn, if I remember correctly, and so it's kind of got that little bit rougher feel. And something I've been realizing as I've been switching back and forth between, BFL yarns and merino and just kind of like general superwash wool, which, tends to be that coarser stuff. I'm finding that I like the coarser yarn a little bit better. Like, it's not something I'd want to wear around my neck, but it is something that I think I prefer for socks because it just seems to knit up a little bit nicer, gets a little bit less fuzzy while I'm doing the initial knit, and just seems to age a little bit better. So I will talk a little bit about how that has influenced my thoughts later. But these ones are done. These are sized for me, although they are just a little bit small for me. So I might wind up sending them off to my mom. I had actually kind of thought about this when I tried them on after I'd finished them. I was like, oh, I bet my mom would like these socks. And she was actually in DC. They came out for our trip up to DC. And I was like, oh, I should take them with me and give them to her. And then I completely forgot. So I will probably either mail these back home to her or give them to her next time I see her. But yeah, they're just a little bit small for me, and she really likes green, so why not give her another pair of green socks? Yeah, those are done. So those are my finished object, and then I have a work in progress that is a almost finished object. So more than a half object because I am pretty close to being done with it. So I will show you the finished half of it. So these are finally the Broken Jack socks that I have been waiting and excited to do forever for like this whole, you know, section of like unusual construction patterns. I've been super excited to do these, and they are finally happening. So these are the Broken Jack by General Hog Buffer. Like I said, I'll link all the patterns below. But these basically are sort of a modular construction sock where you're working in tiers. And let's see if I can show you guys up close. So you're working in tiers. So you do the cuff, you know, first as normal. It's a top-down sock. Oh, these were knit 68 stitches on US size 1's 2.25 millimeter needles. This is a 72 stitch sock on US size 0's, which are a 2 millimeter needle. And the reason I chose to do a 72 stitch sock, if you've been watching for a while, you know that I tend towards a 64 or 68 stitch sock. For these, the pattern is written for a 64 or 72, or anything else divisible by 8. 68, not divisible by 8. And so I had started then thinking, psh, I can make 68 work. No, turns out you can't. Turns out it really does have to be divisible by 8. So I decided to step up the stitch count and then drop down the needle size to get them to fit nicely. So, especially because these are made with Knit Picks Felici in the Time Traveler colorway, and I find the Felici to be just a little bit on the thin side. So I figured stepping down the needle size would probably help to combat that and give me a little bit sturdier fabric. But anyway, the way these are made is you knit the cuff. I'm trying not to like bonk the microphone. You knit the cuff and then you work in tiers of triangles. So the first tier, what you do is you knit these 2 triangles with a wide base. So you knit a triangle with a wide base on each side, and then you turn and you knit the 2 triangles that start at the point and then go up to a wide base. And then in the course of doing this, you rotate 90 degrees on your sock. So then you basically end on the bottom of one of these guys. So then you do the same thing again. Now you knit a triangle with a wide base going to a point. You do the same thing on the other side. And then you knit the 2 triangles on the sides going from the points to the wide base, if that makes sense. So kind of once you get it, it becomes very easy. Like it's a very easily memorized pattern. And I think lends itself really well to, you know, self-striping yarns like this. Like it kind of breaks up the striping and just makes it a little bit more fun and interesting. I think it would also be cool to do with like long color change yarns, like not necessarily like a long single gradient, but something like a Crazy Zauberball or like a Patons Kroy FX. I think that would be kind of cool too, and I'd love to try that in the future and see kind of how it works. But yeah, I think it's really fun. I'm glad that I, chose to do it with this yarn because it's just super duper fun. I kind of wish I had gone, I know I could have fit one more tier in, instead of starting the toe work or starting the plain stockinette where I did, but it's kind of fun because I made it through all the way through one set of stripes. So that's kind of cool to show off like, okay, here's what the stripes actually look like for this yarn. So yeah, so that's the finished one. And I did it with a Fish Lips Kiss heel. The pattern just does kind of a traditional like wrap and turn short row heel. So it's easy to sub in the Fish Lips Kiss if that's what you're used to. I don't know that you could necessarily do a heel flap and gusset with these. You could do a, what am I thinking? An afterthought heel. I think if you put in a lifeline, I think you could probably do an afterthought heel, but I think it could get a little bit tricky towards like the corners of the heel. I definitely think it's probably best to just do a short row heel, whichever one you like best. But so the way the pattern is written is they do the short rows with wraps and turns. I don't like wraps and turns because I can never remember how to pick up my wraps. So I did the pattern completely with twin knit stitches and twin purl stitches, which are the stitches that you use when you're doing the Fish Lips Kiss heel. And I will try and get up close so I can show you guys what this looks like. So that is what the finished fabric looks like. Come on, focus. So I don't, oh, come on, focus. I know you want to. Maybe. It's hard to tell if it's focused. I'm looking at my computer screen, but it's hard to tell if it's actually focused. Hopefully it is. But you can kind of see how that finished fabric looks. I wish it would focus up close like that. Oh well. So you can kind of see how that looks. It produces a pretty flat kind of like seam, I guess. I really wish it would focus on that. Whatever. And then on the inside, it also produces a pretty sort of flat short row seam. So I thought it worked just fine. I definitely would say if you can easily sub in the twin knit stitches and twin purl stitches if you're used to doing them and kind of how to work with them. I think it's no problem. If you have never done short rows before, it might be easier just to do wraps and turns because there's a lot of resources out there for how to do wraps and turns. And I will try, if I remember, I will try and link to the YouTube videos that show you how to do the twin knit stitches and twin purl stitches, because there are YouTube videos for that by the creator of them. Because, they're useful for things other than just the Fish Lips Kiss Heel. So I'll try and remember to link to that video, and then also to, I think I have a page bookmarked on like how to do wraps and turns as well, in case you want to do these socks, but you have never done short rows before. I definitely think that this is a super good pattern to kind of get practice with short rows, because you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, and it really kind of reinforces those habits. But yeah, so this is the finished one that I finished couple days ago, and then I am working on the other one, and I actually just finished the last tier of the like triangles, and so now I'm moving on to this part on this sock. I just rearranged my needles. So yeah, this one, it just has that much of just plain knitting left and then a toe, so I'm hoping to have it finished maybe by tomorrow night. I'm thinking well, probably not by the end of tonight. Because I'm doing this on 2mm needles, these needles are really hard on my hands, and so I can only knit for so long with them. But I'm going to try and make as much progress as I can tonight, but I think my next pair is going to be using my size 1s anyway, so if I get really far and I don't have a lot to do, I'll probably cast on my other pair, like my next pair as well, just because I hate to take like this pair of socks to work with me tomorrow and then have like 10 rows to do and then not have anything else to work on for the rest of the day. So we'll see. But yeah, that's how these are going. I'm really loving them. You can really see how they look different between the two. And so this is really good, like if you enjoy like kind of fraternal twin socks, socks that you can tell they're knit from the same colorway, but they don't look the same. And I actually enhanced that a little bit more because this one I had to, I tried to pull it out from the center and I got a whole bunch of yarn barf. And so I had to wind it up into a ball. And then this one, I wanted it to go the opposite direction in terms of the stripe pattern. So this one I actually wound from the outside in so that I would have the stripes going in the opposite direction, which will of course become more apparent down in this area when you can actually see them, the stripes themselves. But yeah, super excited about them, super happy about them. And that's my work in progress. So for what's coming up next, I am going to try and do one more unusual construction pair of socks, and the pattern name is Euclid, and I just found this today, and it's another General Hog Buffer pattern because I just really enjoy that designer's patterns. Like they have a lot that are kind of this unusual construction sock without being just ridiculously hard to do. So Euclid is another sort of modular one that's again based on triangles, but it's based on equilateral triangles. I'll link to the pattern. I can't really explain it. And so for that one, I'm thinking about using either this yarn, which is another skein of Knit Picks Fleechy. This is the dark side. So this one's kind of a rainbow that has black in it. And so this one, I might use this one. I'm not quite sure if I'm sick of Fleechy yet, or I might use one of my new purchases, which I guess I'll get a little ahead of myself and show you one of them just really quick, and then I'll talk a little bit about it later. Or I might use this. We'll see. But anyway, I'll talk more about this later. So yeah, because that's another pattern that really enhances like color changing yarns. And so I haven't quite decided. I guess it will be whichever one speaks to me at the moment that I go to cast it on. We'll see. But yeah, that is kind of the things off the needles, actively on the needles, and next to be on the needles. So let's talk. I think I'm going to reverse the order a little bit about what I said earlier. Instead of doing knit along news and then new stuff, let's do new stuff then knit along news because it will flow a little bit better. So new stuff. I got some new stuff while I was on my trip up to DC last weekend, and sorry, I bit my lip when I went to, when I paused the video, and so I'm now kind of like, ugh. Anyway, I got some new stuff while we were up in DC, so I wanted to show that off, and then it will lead into the prize stuff for the knit along. So the first thing was unexpected, and this is a skein of yarn that was brought to me by a friend of mine who was going to the pen show, my Canadian pen friend, who I think I've talked about him before, and he brought me this yarn from... So what they were doing is they live up in Canada, and they were driving down to DC for the pen show, but they were making like a whole family vacation out of it. So they stopped for like a night in New York, I think, because another one of our friends lives there. So they stopped like there, and then they stopped, I think, in Amish country as well, and like did some other stuff like kind of along the way. They made a whole big road trip out of it. So they stopped in Amish country. So this came from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And this is I'm not entirely sure. It's from Lancaster Yarn Shop, and it is a skein of, let's see, it's superwash 75-25 wool nylon, and this colorway is called Backyard Peacock. And how pretty is that? Like, seriously, I just can't. Like, it's so pretty. So yeah, if I can find a website for the Lancaster Yarn Shop, I will definitely try and link it below, but it is just so gorgeous. And it was kind of funny because it made me realize that I have a skein similar to this already. And so I dug it out. This is the skein of Mad Tosh that my older brother got me for Christmas last year. And granted, like, of course, seeing them together, they aren't that close, but they're kind of close. And so it just made me laugh a little bit because I love both of them. Like, obviously this is a colorway that I love. But it's just so funny that two men who know me bought me nearly identical skeins of yarn. And so it's just so pretty. And it's really kind of a nice coincidence because I was planning on making the skein of Mad Tosh into a hat at some point because it's a single and it's 100% merino. So I didn't really want to make it into socks, but I wanted it to be something, you know, that I could really wear and show off. So I was planning on making this into a hat. So I thought that this might be good kind of to go with a hat, maybe as like a pair of mittens, because it's like a nice tough, you know, skein of yarn. So like maybe I'll make like a pair of mittens or a pair of like hand warmers out of it, and then like a pair of shorty socks. So I will have a whole matching set. So yeah, that was the first new thing. Total surprise. Can't even. So pretty. And then the other couple of new things were things that I bought for myself. So I went back to Looped Yarn Works, which of course I will link to their shop. It's in DuPont Circle. I've been there before. I think I talked about it the last time I went there. They don't have like the best selection of like sock yarn. Like they have a good selection of fingering weight yarn, but they don't have the best selection of like fingering weight yarn that I consider appropriate to be made into socks. That is not singles and not 100% superwash merino. So, you know, they basically what they have then is they sometimes have like artisanal dyed yarns. Like, I don't know why I can't think of the word that I'm looking for, but like, you know, independent dyers. Like I bought my skein of Knitted Wit there. So sometimes they have that. This time they didn't. So basically I was stuck with like what's kind of commercially available for sock yarns. But I did find a couple of skeins that I wanted and I picked up. So the first skein was is a skein of the Regia Perfect, which I've had this before. If you've been with me for a long time now, you'll remember that I bought a skein of this and made a pair of socks for Wesley's father out of it. That was a kind of like a blue-gray sort of pair. This pair is supposed to stripe up like this. So what you see on the outside is like the main part of the foot, and then the stripes are on the inside. I don't know, I can't quite pull it apart enough for you to be able to see. But yeah, I'm kind of excited. Those stripes look kind of fun. So this one I think I'm gonna hang on to for the kind of last knit along theme, which is yarn enhancing patterns. So like those patterns, or like that chunk of knitting, is going to be for like self-striping yarns or like long variegated yarns and like patterns that really kind of bring out the best in those. So I thought it'd be fun to kind of hunt around for a pattern that will bring out the best in, you know, this kind of skein of yarn, because I like the idea of this. Like, it's really cool, like if you really want a matching pair of socks, you know, without having to do a lot of work for it. So I just would like to find a way to do that that's not just vanilla socks. So yeah, this one's going to be going into my stash and hanging out for a little while. And then I showed this just briefly a few minutes ago, but this is my very first crazy Zauberball. I finally took the plunge. I mean, the crazy Zauberballs are not cheap. They're 25 bucks a ball, I guess. But, you know, I thought it'd be fun to play around with. And so this one is kind of this rainbow color. And I don't know if it tells me the colorway. Oh, the colorway is Frisch Fish. Frisch Fish. And so, yeah, and it's supposed to kind of look like that, I guess. Like that's the color change. But I'm just super excited for it because, you know, you guys know how I love the Patons Kroy FX, and this is like the nicer version of Patons Kroy FX, so I'm super excited about it. Yeah, that's the other new thing that I got for me. And then the last new thing that I got is part of the prize for the knit along. So let me talk a little bit about the knit along, then I'll show you the prize. So the knit along, we have about 2 weeks left as of the time when this video will go live. We only have 6 finished objects, so if in 2 weeks you can, you know, whip up a pair of Squircles or like Broken Jacks or something like that, you know, you have good odds at this point. And like seriously, the Squircles are not hard to make. I'm trying to think of what other, like stripe tees, not hard to make. So, you know, if you can do it in 2 weeks, yeah, not such a bad idea. But anyway, we have about 6 finished objects, and I you know, I mentioned this, I think the last time I recorded, that I'm kind of sick of this theme of patterns. And someone mentioned it, I don't remember if it was in the chatter thread for the this knit along or if it was in the general chatter thread, but someone mentioned that they are really like itching for the color work, and they're like, can it just be September? And I feel the same way. I want it to be color work real bad. So, but you know, 2 more weeks. Like I said, I'm gonna try and bust out another pair to go with the theme. So if you can bust out a pair of Squircles or something, feel free to throw them in the finished object thread. But yeah, so the prize for this one is going to be a project bag and a skein of yarn. So the skein of yarn you guys have seen before, but I will show it off again. So this is the second skein of the Quantum Dots from PhD Yarns that I got a while ago. I gave the other one away for the knit along for, I don't think it was the last one, it was the one before that. So that would have been Cables, I think. And it was like the kind of redder skein. And what's really funny is I realized, oh, so apparently I pick this color too. But yeah, so this skein is definitely more like greens and blues with just a little hint of like red and pink every so often in it. Very pretty, I love it. This one is the, let's see, it's an 80-20 superwash merino nylon, Quantum Dots, and this is colorway 11, I believe. And like I said, it's PhD Yarns. I've talked about them before. Love their yarn, just really beautiful, well dyed, everything like that. They're from here in Virginia. I'll link to their shop. So yeah, so it's gonna be this skein of yarn, and then I picked up this project bag when I was at Looped, and this is a project bag by, I don't really know. I'm not entirely sure. It is by, let's see, stitched by Jessalyn. Jessalyn? Jessalou? I don't know. I'll try and find a shop, but this is what the tag looks like, which of course it's not going to want to focus on. Anyway, I'll try and find a shop for it, and I'll see if I can find something online. But anyway, it is little sheepies, and some of them are wearing galoshes. And I mean, how can you not? How can you not love this? So it's kind of a wider bag, which I suppose would be good if you like to do, you know, like 2 at a time, and you want to have 2 cakes sitting next to each other. You definitely have more than enough room. Or if you're going to be doing colorwork socks and you maybe need to have 2 full-size cakes sitting next to each other, I definitely think you could do that in this bag. So yeah, it's got little sheepies on it. I can't even. It's so cute. It's got a cute little, I think this is a dragonfly or bee. No, I think it's bee. Charm on it. Super cute. So yeah, that's going to be the prize. And of course, I will probably stuff the bag full with other things as well. But yeah, that's the prize for this knit along. So like I said, you have about 2 weeks left. If you can whip up an unusually constructed pair of socks, you got good odds. So yeah. And then, oh, something to tag along with the new stuff. So, and knit along stuff. So the next knit along coming up is going to be color work, and that's going to be September and October. And I haven't done a lot of color work before, but I do know with color work, like you kind of need pretty solid yarns. Like they don't have to necessarily be 100% solid, but they need to be decently solid. And I don't really have a lot of solid yarns in my collection. Like it's just not something that I've acquired in my stash. I did have a bunch, and then I used them because I needed them at the beginning of the year for other stuff. So I don't have a lot right now. And so I was, kind of looking into like, how do I want to go about acquiring these things and stuff like that. And I've looked into it before, with buying like Knit Picks Stroll or Cascade Heritage Sock, which I've mentioned before. I'm not crazy about Cascade Heritage Sock. Like I just have not been impressed with it. So kind of once I worked through what I had, I was kind of like, okay, I think I'm going to be done with this for now. And like I said a little bit earlier on, I'm finding that my preference tends to be more with kind of the hardier yarns, so like the BFL or the just kind of generic superwash wool. So I think what I'm going to do, instead of ordering a whole bunch of yarn, like in specific colors, is I think I found a decently good deal on like 10 skeins of a 75-25 BFL nylon blend that I think I'm just going to order and try dyeing my own yarn. So I think I'm probably going to do that once I get paid this next week, because I get paid in the middle of the month. So I'll, celebrate payday by buying myself almost $100 worth of yarn. And so I probably won't have it by the time I record next week, but maybe really it needs to be by the week after that. I should hopefully have it and have attempted dyeing some of it, and I will report back on how that goes. But I'm kind of excited. Like yarn dyeing is something it's an idea I've been tossing around for a little while. Like obviously not on like a commercial scale, but just kind of, a skein or two here or there for myself. I think it would be kind of fun, and I think it would be especially fun to do it for, like colorwork socks, because, it's not like I'm trying to get anything very like complex. I just want to dye a whole skein the same color roughly. So I think it'll be fun. I found a article from Knitty on how to dye like just in a pan on the stovetop using Kool-Aid. So I will link that. If you are an experienced dyer and, take a look at that, see if those look like good directions, let me know. Bear in mind, like I basically have the stovetop and that's about it. So I don't want to get into anything too complicated. So like, a pan on the stove and some Kool-Aid sounds right up my alley. Sounds about at my ability level at this point. But yeah, like I said, I'll link that article. Let me know if those seem like good directions, or if maybe there's better directions for the same process out there somewhere. But yeah, I'm super excited. I hope to, really find a good creative outlet in this, and I think it'll be really fun. And who knows, maybe my next knit along will have a hand-dyed skein by me as a prize. I don't know. That'd be kind of cool, right? Maybe, yes? I don't know. But anyway, so that's it for all the knit along new stuff. Okay, I'll really quick, before I cut again, let's talk about question of the week. So my question of the week last week was talking about like, how do you count your rows when you're knitting? And I got a lot of really good responses. Basically the gist of it was like, do you count the row on your needles as a completed row or not? And I don't know, I wouldn't say like it's 50-50 because I didn't exactly keep count, but I feel like I got a decent amount of responses that went each way. A decent amount of people said, yes, I do count it because of bleh. Or they said, no, I don't count it because of bleh. And it was really interesting because like I don't have a super good reason why I don't count it. Like I do not count the row on my needles as a completed row of knitting. I don't have a really good reason why I don't. I just don't. And I'm always very consistent about it. I always don't count it. And I've never had any trouble with it. So to me, it seems like as long as you're consistent, you should be fine. Like I've always had an okay time following patterns and counting rows and everything. So it's kind of like, well, okay. If my sock just turns out to be one row longer, like over the grand scheme of things, it's not really that big of a deal. But it was interesting because like everyone's answer made sense, like why they didn't or why they did. But then just as often, another answer that contradicted it made total sense too. It was like every answer made sense. Like I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense why you would count it, but that also makes sense why you wouldn't count it. So I just thought it was very interesting. It's just kind of one of those things to where I don't necessarily think there is a right or a wrong way to do it. I think the only thing that matters is like self-consistency, and like as long as you do it the same way every single time and the reason that you do it makes sense to you, that's really all that matters. But anyway, I got a lot of good responses and I really enjoyed that, and that was really fun. So yeah, I thank you all for that. And nobody changed my mind. I haven't changed the way that I've knit, but now it's just like, it made me realize how little of a reason I have for why I do it the way that I do. But yeah. Okay, so that was question of the week last week. So question of the week this week is not knitting related. I know I kind of bounce back and forth between knitting related and not knitting related, but this is not knitting related. But my question of the week this week is, how do you feel about selfies? So if you have no idea what that means, basically a selfie is a picture that you take of yourself using usually your cell phone. Usually you are holding your cell phone out here and taking a picture of yourself, typically from some sort of upward angle because that is what looks nicest. Yeah, selfies, yay or nay. I am very pro selfie. Wesley is very anti-selfie. We were talking about this earlier today because he does some photography stuff, but he tends to do a lot of like not portrait photography. Like he does a lot of like, I guess, still life, I don't know, just like life photography, but like he doesn't take pictures of people. And he does not like selfies because he feels like if you're calling it a selfie, then it's not really art. Like you can't really call it something, like he thinks they're fine for like just whatever, but he's like, that's not art. Like that would never be a real picture. Which I think is a fine perspective to have. Like it's true, like a selfie is typically horribly composed, horribly lit, like, you know, it's a spur of the moment sort of shot. So that's his opinion. My opinion is I am all for selfies, and I think selfies are my preferred method of having a picture taken of me. Whether it's art or not, I don't know. But in terms of like pictures of me that I've actually liked, I think selfies have really been a game changer, because I have pictures of me from like on vacation when I was in Europe, in undergrad and stuff. And, you know, it's pictures where it's like, oh, someone else is holding your camera, and it's like, oh, go sit there, and, you know. And I always think those pictures are the worst looking pictures. Like, they're just horribly uncomfortable. They just look really awkward. They look super, like, staged and uncomfortable. And so I don't like those kinds of pictures. You know, I look at those pictures of myself and I'm like, ugh. Versus I look at selfies and it's always like, you know, because it's so spontaneous, so spur of the moment, and because you don't necessarily want to be caught taking a selfie in public, you know, you kind of have to hurry up, get the picture taken, and be done. I always think that those pictures best capture, you know, me, and if I'm having fun, they capture that, and the fun that the people that I'm with are having. I just always think that those are the best pictures of me. And so, you know, I am a huge fan of selfies. So yeah, how do you feel about selfies? How do you feel about, you know, both taking selfies of yourself, other people taking selfies, stuff like that? What are your thoughts on selfies? And that's going to be it for all of the knitting related stuff. So if that's all you were here for, thank you very much for hanging out with me. I realized this was a little bit longer chat this week. But yeah, if that's all you're here for, thanks so much, and I'll see you again next week. If you want to hear a little bit about the past 2 weeks for me, let's get on to that stuff. Okay, so the past 2 weeks, I feel like a lot has happened, and at the same time, like not a ton has happened. But anyway, so basically the big things were kind of our trip to DC and then me getting sick. So yeah, basically before the trip to DC, between the last episode and the trip to DC, not much. It was just a couple of days, you know, just kind of doing the work thing. So then we went up to DC, and I know I had talked about this a little bit, but basically the reason we were going up there is because every year they have a pen convention in DC in August, and it's the biggest one in the country. And when we moved out here last year, that was like the first big thing we did, was we moved out here, and then I think maybe the next weekend was the convention in DC. So, you know, we wanted to go back this year because it's a chance for me to get to see some of my internet friends and do all that stuff. And it's just really good fun. And the benefit this year was that my mom was coming out. So she was going to be there in DC as well. And so we got to show her around. So basically we left for DC on Thursday night because Wesley had to teach during the day on Thursday. So as soon as he got done teaching, we came home, we grabbed our stuff, loaded up the car, and then drove up to DC. And luckily, the hotel where the convention is, which is also where we were staying, is not like in DC. It's actually in Tyson, Virginia, which is on the southwest side of DC, like the part of the city. So the nice thing is, like, we didn't actually have to go into the city at all, and so traffic wasn't bad. We actually didn't hit hardly any traffic going up because we were going up at rush hour, and everyone, of course, wanted to get out of DC. No one was going north. Everyone wanted to go south. So traffic was pretty good, and it was, we thought we weren't going to hit any tolls. And we didn't, except at the very end. It was so annoying. So you have to get on this toll road to get into the hotel. And I saw, like, on my GPS that I was using, that it was like, oh, you have to exit in a mile. And then I saw a sign saying Toll Plaza 1 mile. And I was like, okay, please let our exit be right before the tolls. No. So we get to the toll booth, and it's like a $2.50 toll. And it was like, holy cow. And so I had to dig out a bunch of change and stuff while we were, waiting in line. And we had to pay the toll, and then, no joke, like 500 feet later was our exit. So I was like, we had to pay $2.50 to drive 500 feet. Super annoying. But I mean, other than that, we didn't have to, deal with any tolls or anything or any traffic. So it was pretty good. And the nice thing is, once we got to the hotel, unless we wanted to go to a restaurant really close to the hotel, but like too far to walk to, we didn't have to drive at all. So, everywhere else we could get to by walking or taking the metro. So anyway, so we get in Thursday night. We had dinner with my mom and my Canadian pen pal friend, and just kind of took it easy. And then Friday, we went into the pen convention for a little bit in the morning because we got weekend passes, so we could go in all weekend. So we did that in the morning, and then, but like, my mom didn't necessarily care about going to the show. So, and like, I didn't really want to be there during the day because it gets really busy during the day. Like, that's what I learned last year, was it gets really busy, and I don't really enjoy it during the day. So we went in for a little bit in the morning, bought a couple things that we wanted to buy, and then during the day, we went out into the city. We went into DC. And so I'm trying to think of what we did during the day. I wrote it down. What we did during the day on Friday is we had lunch at Whole Foods. Like, so what I have found about DC is that they don't have a ton of lunch options that are super quick and easy and gluten-free. So, we were trying to find somewhere that we could eat lunch, and I looked on a map and I saw, oh, there's a Whole Foods that's not too far from a Metro stop, that's not too far from other stuff. Why don't we do that? Because I've had good luck eating at like the Whole Foods hot bar before for lunch. So we go there, and it was crazy busy because, of course, it was lunchtime on a Friday in downtown DC. But it was also kind of disappointing. Like, I was not impressed by the hot bar at that Whole Foods. So go figure. But anyway, we did that, and then we walked and saw the Vietnam Memorial, the Lincoln Memorial, the Washington Monument, and the World War II Memorial, because they're all kind of right there. Like, from the Whole Foods, we like took a straight shot down to the Vietnam Memorial, and then I think Lincoln's right there, and then we walked down the mall to the Washington Monument, and then did World War II. And at that point, we were just completely worn out because it was really hot. I mean, it actually wasn't that hot. I think it was not so bad, but then the sun came out. Like, it was not bad when we started because it was cloudy, and so it was kind of cool. But then by the time we were finishing up, the sun had come out, and then it was really hot, and we were just tired, from all the walking. And so, so then we went back, but it was kind of cool because this was the first time I'd ever actually seen the reflecting pool with water in it. And if you haven't been to DC and you have no idea what I'm talking about, the reflecting pool is between the Lincoln Memorial and the Washington Monument. It's this big, long pool. And basically, what you reflect on is how long the pool is. Like, as you walk down it, you're like, yes, I am reflecting on how long I've been walking next to this pool. But it's really cool. It's probably only that deep. But I've actually never seen it with water because the other times I've been to DC, it's always been under construction or something, or it's been like winter or whatever. For some reason, there's never been water in it. So it was really cool to see it with water. Very beautiful. And so then we got back, had dinner at a Thai place that we ate at last year, and it was just as good this year. That was a big dinner with all my pen friends. And it was super fun because, you just get to kind of geek out with people who are just as passionate as you about your hobbies. So that's always really fun. I always really enjoy that. And yeah, just dinner with good friends, and it was so much Thai food, so many carbs, so delicious. And then after that, we got back, and there was like a big sort of like blogger meetup for the pen convention. Like it's hosted by a guy who writes a blog called The Pen Addict, which I will link. If you're not interested in pens, don't bother. But he writes a blog called The Pen Addict. He hosts a podcast also called The Pen Addict. And he's kind of like a big guy in this circle. And so he was hosting this meetup, and most of the other people who were there are people who are, bloggers or active on social media, like in some form, because that's kind of how you hear about it. So that was a lot of fun. It was a room full of people who all love pens and who all kind of knew each other. We all kind of know each other from our blogs or from, Instagram or Twitter or something. So it was really fun to kind of put faces with people that you maybe knew online but had never seen in real life before. And just to do that and just to see old friends and all of that. So that was a super fun time, super exhausting. And then I think after that, or no, we just stayed up pretty late, and they had like beer and wine and stuff there, so we had fun there, and then we just went back and crashed because we were so tired, like from walking around all day and then being around people all night. It was just like, okay, we need to go not be around people. So we just went back and crashed. And then Saturday, Saturday we went back to the show again in the morning, and Wesley found his Grail pen. And this is a pen that he was looking for last year at the show. And it's a pen that he'd fallen in love with, but he'd only ever seen a picture online. And it was just so pretty. And it's not in production anymore, not even close. Like, it hasn't been in production for quite a while. And so he spent all last year at the show, like the whole time we were at the show last year, looking for it. Nobody had it. No one had seen one in quite a while. No one knew someone who had one. And he was just like, oh, this is just a bummer. Like, I'm just never going to find it. So, I'd actually asked him this year, I was like, well, what happens if you find it? Like, are you going to buy it? Because if you don't buy it, you're just going to kick yourself. And he's like, yeah, I'll probably buy it. So then we happened to find it. Like, it was just sitting on one of the tables, a guy who had a whole bunch of like old pens that, aren't in production. And it was just sitting there on the table. And I was like, dude, you have to buy it now. So he did. And it was a pretty good price, like given that it's not a pen that you can really buy anymore or find. And I think it was limited to maybe 2,000 pieces or so. So like, they're not easy to find. Typically people who have them are collectors who don't want to get rid of them. So he was very excited to find that. And I just spent way too much money on like notebooks and stuff. So yeah, I actually didn't buy any pens at the show this year because I just didn't find any that I loved. But yeah, so we did that. And then we went again back into the city with my mom and her Bob. And my mom's boyfriend's name is Bob. So I typically just call them my mom and her Bob. Anyway, so we went back into the city again because they wanted to see the Marine Corps Memorial, which is like right next to Arlington. So we did that, went and saw the memorial, which is way bigger than I thought it would be, like way bigger in real life than you think it's going to be. And then we walked through Arlington, which again is just so much bigger than you think it will be. Like if you're out in DC, I highly recommend, taking a stop at Arlington. And then we waited entirely too long for the metro because there were delays on all the lines over the weekend. So we had to wait like 25 minutes for a train. And then had lunch again at the same Whole Foods because we just wound up back there and we were hungry and we're like, well, fine, at least we know what to expect here. So we did that and then went back to the hotel. And then that night we went out again with my Canadian pen friend and his family, and we went to Olive Garden, which was really funny because, he picked where, like, he asked if we were free for dinner. I was like, yeah, and I kind of just figured he would pick something because he's way better than I am at picking places. And so it was so funny because he texted me back. He's like, how do you feel about the Olive Garden? And I kind of had this moment where I was like, wait, do they not have Olive Gardens in Canada? Just, the way it was phrased. And of course it was over a text. So there's no like, there's no context. So I was like, I was like asking Wesley, I was like, do they not have Olive Gardens in Canada? Like, is this something that he found on Yelp and he has no idea what it is? So I kind of texted back. I was like, yeah, Olive Garden's fine. Like, I don't dislike it. Nobody dislikes Olive Garden. You know, like, there's something there everyone can eat. And he is a little kid. So I was like, oh, that's good, you know, food for a little kid too. And so then I told him about this later, and he's like, no, we've had them. We've eaten there before. But he's like, but I feel like people either love Olive Garden or they hate it. So that's why I was like, oh. But it was good. I haven't had Olive Garden in a really long time, and it was actually surprisingly good. So yeah, I would eat it again. It was okay. But so we did dinner again, and then we went back to the hotel and had drinks at the hotel bar, which were crazy expensive. Like, hotel bars are just such a racket. But we had drinks there with like the whole gang, because what kind of happens at this show is like everyone's in the convention at the morning, you know, buying and selling and taking classes and stuff. And then at night is when it really happens. That's why like I didn't feel bad about leaving during the day and going out into the city, is because at night is really when the fun happens. So then everyone gathers in the hotel bar and just shuts it down. You know, like here's all these people that you think are going to be like super nerdy, but no, it's such a fun time. So we were at a table with actually the guy, the pen addict guy. He was chilling out with us for a little while and then moved on to another table. But yeah, and then my pen friend, and then there was a couple guys there from a shop that I really, really love. They did a Kickstarter, and now they are selling these notebooks, and I'll link to them if you're curious. They sell the little, actually, it's these guys. Story Supply Co. They make these little pocket-sized notebooks like this, 3.5 by 5.5, and they're really good quality. So like if you are a fountain pen person, these handle fountain pens really well. They handle gel pens and pencils really well. So I got to meet these guys, and they were so nice and so much fun. And you know, this was their first time at like a pen show like this. So it was I think they had a good day. They were having a good time. So yeah, we got to see them, got to hang out with some other people, and so it was just a really good time at the bar Saturday night. And then Sunday what else did we do Sunday? Sunday we went back into the show really briefly in the morning, I think, but not really for very long. And then we went back into the city because my mom wanted to see St. Matthew's Cathedral. So we went and saw that, and then because we were relatively close to the White House, I was like, well, if you guys want to see the White House, now is a good time to do it. So we went to go see the White House, and then we went back, and my mom and her Bob had to hurry up and get on the road then because they were going up to Boston Sunday night, which I didn't realize was so far from DC, or else I would have been like more on top of the timing. But yeah, they didn't get out of there till like 3, and I think it was like 8 hours up to Boston or something. So whew. So then we grabbed lunch, and then we came back down to Richmond and got back in about 6 or so, I think. So yeah, so not bad. It was a good trip. It was an exhausting trip. Like, I always feel like these things, you know, it was a fun thing to do, but it was certainly not like a relaxing or a restful vacation in any way. Like, it was super exhausting, and just every day was just like 150%, you know, just go the whole time. So we did that, and then it was back to work on Monday, and then just kind of business as usual Monday and Tuesday, and then Wednesday I got sick. So Wednesday I got what we are kind of calling the conference crud, which is just, you know, you go to like a conference or convention or something, you come back and you get sick, you get a cold, because you've just been around too many gross, disgusting, grimy people, and especially somewhere like DC where you're also like riding the metro, and that's just like a giant tube of germs. You know, you just get sick. So I got a cold on Wednesday, and it was, it got worse Thursday, but I mean, I still went to work Thursday. And then Friday, it was just really bad. Like, bad enough that I had to take a sick day, and that's the first sick day I've taken at this job, since I started in January. So, yeah, I was pretty miserable Friday. And then yesterday, I was feeling a little bit better, and now today, like I said, I think I'm back at about 90% normal. So, yeah, that's nice, because I was pretty sick of being sick. But yeah, we did that, and then I'm trying to think, I gotta finish this round, then look back at my notes and see what else I have to report. Yeah, basically, you know, the second half of my week was just dominated by being sick, which I hate. But what can you do? yeah, and so now at this point, we're just kind of gearing up for fall semester. Because, let's see, we have this week completely off, and then fall semester starts the next week. It starts August 25th, which is a Thursday, which is a weird day to have fall semester start. But yeah, so I'm just really looking forward to fall semester starting and kind of getting back on, that track. Because I signed up for a class for fall semester, so I will be taking a class. I'll be teaching again. There'll be TAs and students around again. So it'll really just be nice to kind of just get back into like normal, whatever normal is for me, even though like our labs don't start for like 3 weeks after the semester starts, just because of the first week's not a full week, and then we have a full week, and then the next week we have Monday off, which means we would have no labs. So it's like it just makes sense to wait to start labs until after Labor Day, which just means a long time without starting them. But what can you do? So yeah, I'm excited for the class I'm taking. I will, of course, report more on that once I get into it. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of it. We went and saw Suicide Squad on Tuesday. Luckily, I hadn't gotten sick yet, so I could enjoy it. But I thought it was pretty good. We both thought it was good, based on kind of what we'd heard about it and what we were kind of expecting. Like, we both thought it was better than what we were expecting. So I really liked it. Wesley doesn't love Jared Leto's portrayal of the Joker. I don't love it, but I don't hate it either. Like, I think it's kind of okay, especially considering Heath Ledger's Joker. I think this was a fine continuation of the Joker character. But yeah, I thought Suicide Squad was fine. It was a fun, action-packed movie. It was genuinely funny at times. Like, there were times when I actually just laughed, which I don't know that it would be funny if I watched it again, but it's kind of one of those movies where the first time you watch it, like, there are some genuinely funny moments, like laugh out loud funny moments. So that was a nice surprise. But yeah, we did that, and then that was my choice of a movie. So now if we go to a movie this next week, it'll be Wesley's choice. I don't know what he'll pick, but I'll let you guys know. And speaking of movies, the last thing I'll mention before I sign off, since this is getting a little long, I watched an interesting video on YouTube yesterday evening, so last night, just kind of about, and I don't know what to like say it is. It's just kind of about like how, we look at our lives and how we look at like, sort of like forever, the concept of forever. So I thought it was a very interesting video. I won't just link it. I will embed it below at the bottom of the links, because I think it's really worth watching, and I think it's so worth watching that I don't want you to have to leave the page. Like, I realize that that's a barrier, like some people don't want to click a link. I don't even want that to be a thing. I just want it to be there, so if you want to watch it, take a look at it. I thought it was a very inspirational thing. It's nothing I haven't thought about before, and it's nothing necessarily like earth-shattering, but sometimes, like, you have to hear something a different way, and it's just like, whoa. And I kind of had that moment when I watched this. So, future Andy, embed the video below the links, because I'll hear that when I edit. But yeah, I thought it was really good. I highly recommend watching it. Take from it what you will. I thought it was a great video. I thought it was really good food for thought. Yeah, and with that, I'm going to be done. I have a pan of Scotcheroos that were chilling in the fridge, and I think by now they should be cool enough to cut. And oh my gosh, I'm so excited, because I think this time I finally got the like kind of sauce whatever to the perfect consistency to really hold them together nicely. So I'm super excited. I'll put a link down below to the recipe I use for Scotcheroos. The only difference, or the only modification that I make is, the modifications that I make is I use more peanut butter than the recipe calls for. I use typically 1.5 cups. And I have found that I prefer using natural peanut butter to regular peanut butter. I just think it's a little bit stickier. This time I think I actually used a little bit more corn syrup than I was supposed to. I probably used 1 cup and a little bit, not like maybe 1.8 cups, I think. And I have stopped using the butterscotch chips on top, and I just use an entire 12-ounce bag of semi-sweet chocolate chips, and that works just fine, because for us, we like the peanut butter crispy part. We don't necessarily care about the butterscotch part, and buying 2 bags of those things is just not worth it to me. So yeah, I'll link that below. And that's going to be it for me. I'm going to go stuff my face with peanut butter Krispies and then maybe a nutritious dinner. We'll see. But yeah, thank you very much for hanging out. I realized this was a longer episode than normal. So if you stayed with me all the way to the end, thank you very much. And I'll see you again next week, hopefully. Bye.